Representative Weir, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I didn't know if it was, obviously we want to talk about some of the issues that are directly related to you and your work, but I didn't know, obviously, this tax cut proposal yesterday came out of the Senate, and it's not something you're necessarily directly involved in, but, whether it be the guardrails and tweaking the guardrails or this tax cut proposal by the Republicans, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on where, you stand on it.
Yeah, I heard about the proposal. Obviously, that is a Senate Republican proposal. I think, anytime we're talking about cutting taxes and looking to be good financial stewards, fiscal stewards of the taxpayer money, I think that's a good discussion to be having. That shouldn't really be partisan. But I think a lot, more information is going to come out. We're going to listen to the governor's budget address today, and I imagine that the House Republicans will be coming out with a proposal, and hopefully everybody gets in the room and we come out with something that works best for the taxpayer and the citizens of the state of Connecticut.
Are you like, when it comes to the guardrails, do you want to keep them in place? Do you think they should be tweaked a little bit? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, the guardrails, I am a big proponent of keeping those guardrails in place. I mean, I'm a second term, I'm serving my second term here, so these, precede me by several years, but I, as a taxpayer, a business owner, a lifelong Connecticut resident, I mean, the years of the deficits and unfunded pension liability, I was aware of those, and, we're heading in the right direction. So I think, our bond ratings have improved. We're able to borrow money. When the bond ratings when you have a better rating, the money that you're borrowing is less. We're paying less interest. It just makes financial, it's good. We're being good fiscal stewards of the taxpayer money by keeping those guardrails in place, limiting spending. And I think we should be watching how every dollar is spent. I really think we have to watch that. So I'm a big proponent of keeping the guardrails as they are and adjusting accordingly. I know there's a push to tweak them, but what we have has been working. It's taken us, when we had consistent deficits year after year after year, and legislators getting called in for special session because we couldn't agree on a budget. We haven't had that since these were enacted. So I just, I'm a proponent of staying the course with them.
We're talking with Steve Weir, state rep in the 55th district. Let's get involved in stuff that's a little closer to you. In terms of labor stuff, there's so many bills that are circulating, and it's hard to know what's the most important to focus on. For instance, the, compensating striking workers if they strike for more than 2 weeks. I thought that was. I'm an independent, unaffiliated. I thought that bill, when it was squashed for good, but I don't know if it's coming back. But you let people know a bill or two in the labor side of things that you think are really important for people to know about.
Yeah, I think, we discussed that bill. Well, you had me on last year to discuss this particular concept. And I think my recollection was, I think you thought I was kidding, or you thought it was a joke when I brought it up. And I maybe I interpreted that wrong, but it seems so absurd that you're like, how can you, it was hyperbolic. Is that, how could you possibly be making this claim, Rep. Weir? And no, it came up last year. I believe it may have come up before my time in the legislature, but I was well aware of it last year. And it ended up, to your point, getting squashed. It was it was watered down and put through both houses. The governor vetoed it under a different title. And this year, I would say it's something to watch. Democrats' priority bills. So when they put a low number on it, and I think it's something to watch, and that this would allow striking workers who to be eligible for unemployment compensation after 2 weeks on strike. And I recognize that a strike is a difficult situation for both parties. But the whole intent of unemployment compensation insurance is for somebody who loses their form of work out of no fault of their own. They're laid off, they're fired, whatever, there's lack of work. In this case, strike is willful. It's a decision made, which goes against the intent of that. I think, furthermore, it just sends a bad message that the legislature is getting involved to kind of tip the scales. I think workers have a right to collectively bargain, and we should allow the unions and the management to negotiate, and I don't think that the state legislature has a place in tipping the scales in favor of one over the other. So that's a big one. I wish that wasn't on the list this year.
Yeah. What about SB 221 about the minimum wage, tipped wages, and that story?
So that was again. That was one from last year. Has not come back that I've seen. So that may have lost its steam. One I would like to point out. A couple other ones that have come up that are on the radar this year. Protection for warehouse workers, and this is really targeted, from my understanding, at Amazon and some of the larger warehouses where they have performance metrics and quotas, and they watch. We all depend on our packages showing up, and Amazon has a very, from what I understand, robust system for tracking employee performance. And I'll actually be touring the facility within the next couple of weeks to see for myself one of their facilities. But I listened to the press conference with the Democrats. This was also a priority bill, and it seems like that while they say the goal is worker safety and protection of warehouse workers, my question why they're only focusing on this one industry if we're looking at protecting workers. And I did hear, I believe it was Senator Looney or Senator Duff talking about the goal of having couldn't understand why these workers aren't unionized. So I believe that was the goal here is to try to get workers at Amazon unionized. We'll watch it, but I think. Continue. Sorry.
No. Please, we're tight on time with Steve Weir, state rep in the 55th. Housing, housing's fascinating because everyone acknowledges, Republican, Democrat, that we have a housing problem. We talked about the
Sure.
rent. It's so hard to find a place, and there's not a lot of new housing in Connecticut, and it's a massive problem. What can the state do, in your opinion, to help the situation?
Yeah, well, I think, and this is where we probably need an hour in the studio to discuss some of these, but I think generally speaking, it comes down to the market, and where supply is tight and demand is high, the prices are going to go up, and that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, we've got costs that we've had more housing needs than there are housing available, and so the price goes up, just like with many other commodities out there at the grocery store. We're seeing that with eggs, and I'm not trying to equate necessarily eggs with housing, but I think we want to create an environment where property owners, landlords, investors want to come to Connecticut and build and invest. And so some of the more punitive ideas that have come out of the Housing Committee are going to scare those investors away. So we want to make sure that we make Connecticut a welcome place to developers, to property owners, landlords, hold them accountable, because there are some bad actors out there in certain communities that are taking advantage of their residents. But it's not the bulk of the landlords out there are doing the right thing by their residents. And so we want to create an environment where they want to make it easy to develop, make it easy to borrow and have them want to invest rather than coming up with punitive proposals that just scare the good guys away.
Representative Weir, we appreciate the time as always.
All right. Thank you for having me. We'll talk soon.